PBS Utah presents the Governor's Monthly News Conference, an exchange between Utah reporters and Governor Spencer Cox.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be with you again as another month has flown by. We appreciate you taking time to spend it with us this morning. I'd like to take just a little bit of time to give you an update on where we are with our pandemic response. Just want to speak briefly about hospitalizations. Some good news is that we have had, of course, over the last several months, real reductions in the number of hospitalizations, including and especially those above the age of 65. However, we want to note that the pandemic is still with us, and we are still seeing hospitalizations. We consider 72% of our ICU utilization to be high use. Anytime we're above 72%, we've been below 72%, right around there. We've ticked just up a little bit, and of course that's not just COVID. COVID is a small portion of that, but the COVID hospitalizations and ICU utilizations are really important. So we just want to make people aware that if you have not been vaccinated, that you should still wear a mask and exercise caution. Just something to note: if you look back around October, people who were ages 65 to 84 were the most hospitalized age group every week by a significant portion. But in April, and of course extending into May, it actually fell to third place. So that's the good news. It shows that vaccinations absolutely work. As soon as we opened up vaccinations to those over the age of 65, we saw a huge decrease. So they went from the most hospitalized group to the third most hospitalized group, behind people ages 45 to 64 and people ages 25 to 44. We have not seen vaccination rates in those age groups that match those above 65, and so we just want to continue to encourage people to get those vaccinations. We've now administered more than 2.4 million total doses of the vaccine, and around 55% of eligible people in Utah have gotten at least one dose, and we are continuing to see those numbers go up. In fact, the good news is we've seen vaccine numbers higher on days this week than we did the week before. Part of that has to do with the availability of children ages 12 to 15 to get the vaccine. We've certainly seen an influx of kids those age, including my own 14-year-old daughter, and so we're excited about that and encourage those young people to get their vaccines. I want to give a special shout out to Summit County, which has the highest number of eligible people vaccinated at 66% of people ages 12 and older. Nationally, speaking of those 12 to 15-year-olds, approximately 4% have received at least one dose. In Utah, we are leading the nation in that percentage at 9% that have received at least one dose. So almost that's right about 20,000 kids ages 12 to 15 have received that dose. It is interesting to note, as I've been able to talk to some of the vaccination clinics across the state, while they have seen an influx of 12 to 15, they also saw an increase in people in older age groups coming in to get their first doses. So that was good news to see that more and more people were getting out over the past week. Just an update on our push to get vaccinations into our multicultural communities. As of yesterday, we had about 42% of Asian adults that had received at least one vaccine, about 35% of Hispanic adults, 24% of Black adults, and 23.4% of our Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander community. So we're making great progress there, but we do still have quite a ways to go, and we're pushing those vaccinations out to more local areas and to more community centers. For comparison, we have 50% of white adults that have received at least one dose of the vaccine. We now have more than 1.1 million, or just under 44% of all eligible Utahns fully immunized against COVID-19, and 88% of people 65 and older also received at least one dose, and 77% those 65 and older are fully vaccinated. I do want to give an update on our rolling case counts. Since Dr. Dunn isn't with us to do that as she used to do, our rolling 7-day average for positive cases is 312 per day. So we're excited. Our goal was always to get back down under 400, and soon we expect to be under 300. That compares to a rolling average last week of 328. So we're continuing to see those numbers come down. Just by way of note, the last time we were this low in our 7-day rolling average was June 5th of last year. So it's almost been a full year since we had a rolling average. We were at 324 on June 5th of last year. We just want to briefly, we continue to see some misinformation coming out around vaccines. We've been talking to doctors, especially fetal medicine specialists, and they've made it clear and asked us to make it clear that vaccines do not affect fertility in any way. Women who are or who may become pregnant can feel safe, but you don't have to take my word for it. I would encourage you, as always, to talk to your doctor. So just to note how far we've come in slowing the spread of the virus. It took us 8 months to reach our first 100,000 cases of COVID on October 21st. It only took 1.5 months to hit the next 100,000 cases. We did that on December 1st, and it took 1 month to hit the next 100,000 cases that we hit on January 7th. And now it took us 4 months to reach the 400,000 case mark. We did that on May 7th. So we're absolutely trending in the right direction. We're excited for what's happening, excited to get things back to normal as quickly as possible. And with that, I'm happy to answer some questions.
Governor, what are your thoughts with the legislature passing resolutions in extraordinary special session on critical race theory and declaring Utah's Second Amendment sanctuary, considering that you wouldn't put it on the call and it appears they went around you?
Sure. Look, so we do have 3 branches of government in this state, and every branch has the opportunity and ability to speak for themselves, and I think it's perfectly fine and important for the legislature to have those opportunities. They actually did what I asked them to do. I issued a lengthy letter, and I hope those that are interested in these topics will take the opportunity to read that. And in that letter, I explained why I thought it was important on these issues to do them in the right way before we passed a bill. And again, this is the Utah way. We bring people together. We work through these hard issues. We listen to all voices, and then we try to make an appropriate and rational and measured decision. And if you actually read the resolutions, that's exactly what they did. In my letter, I said we need to give the school board an opportunity. It's their constitutional duty, first of all, and also something that they're working hard on. And I've had conversations with Chair Huntsman. I've had conversations with Superintendent Dixon, and they are doing it the right way. And I'm very impressed with what they're doing. And if you look at those resolutions, that's basically all they did was to say, hey, we want to work on this. We have some concerns. I thought it was interesting, and I would encourage people to listen to the conversation or the debate, as it were, in the Senate, where I thought there was some very thoughtful debate. I thought Senator Fillmore did a great job of saying, no one really knows what critical race theory is. If you ask 50 different people, and I have, that are concerned about it, they will give you 50 different answers as to what it is. And so those definitions really matter. It's also hard for people to point to any evidence of where it's being taught in our schools. And so the school board and the superintendent have told me that anytime there has been a report of something that is being taught, they have gone and investigated those reports, as have superintendents. It is not part of the curriculum, and they have not been able to find any evidence that it is being taught. That being said, we we know that there is pressure in some circles, and there is definitely concern in circles around this, and so they are working towards definitions, making sure that we're teaching the curriculum as it's supposed to be taught, but also just as importantly, making sure we're not avoiding the hard conversations about our history. And I just want to emphasize how important that piece is. We live in the greatest nation in the history of the world, and we have so much to be proud of, and we have to teach those things, and we should teach those things. We've also made some very serious mistakes in our past. We shouldn't shy away from those things. Those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it, and we need to make sure that our kids, our school kids, that they learn the ugly parts of our history as well. That's what makes us stronger. Again, our country was formed on an idea. Part of that idea is that we let ideas compete, and the best ideas win out.
Just so we're clear, you support the resolutions as written. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you read the resolutions, there's nothing really controversial in them. The resolutions say that they encourage the state school board to work on this issue, which is exactly what my letter said.
Okay, Governor, a couple of questions. One, your reaction to what the Democrats in the House did yesterday in walking out. And two, you said earlier this week in a letter to legislators that critical race theory should not have a place in Utah curriculum. Why shouldn't it have a place in Utah curriculum?
Well, so first of all, it doesn't have a place in Utah curriculum. It's not being taught anywhere, and so
should it?
Not in K through 12. No, and again, it depends on how you define critical race theory. There are certain portions of critical race theory that again, from what I understand, it's a theory, are problematic. I have no problem with kids learning about other theories, but teaching those things as truth, I think, can be problematic. And so it's one of those things where it's how you define it that matters, and that's going to be really important, and that's the work that the school board is undertaking right now.
Okay, and the Democrats, the walkout in the House, your reaction to the walkout?
That's their way of making their voices heard, and I don't have a problem with that either. I think it's what's really great about these institutions, and in my letter I mentioned this, is that we have these institutions for a reason, and we have opportunities. There have certainly been shows of passion like that in the past, where certain legislators have walked off the floor in an effort to make their voices heard and to get their point across. I did like what happened in the Senate better than what happened in the House. I will say that. I thought there was some very thoughtful discussion in the Senate, and that's why I encourage people to go back and listen to it. I thought it was very honest. I mean, even the sponsor of the bill said that he didn't know what critical race theory was, and he had tried to research it, and there was a lot of confusion about what it was or what was being taught or where it was being taught. And so I like that better. I like when we put people, and this institution gives us an opportunity to do that, to have the debate. Now, my understanding is that the Democrats in the House felt that they had not been consulted, that they had not been included in any of those discussions, and so they were they left the floor, and there was no debate. I would prefer to have debate. I think it's healthy to have disagreement and discussion and debate around a topic, which is what happened in the Senate. And so that's my preference, but I don't hold that against them.
If legislators walk off the floor, are they doing their job?
Well, their job is to represent their constituencies, and I don't think it's my determination to tell them whether or not they're doing their job. If they feel that that's how they get their message across, their votes were not recorded, but that shows up in a very low vote total. So I think every legislator has to make that determination for themselves. Their job is to represent their constituents, and their constituents will decide whether they're doing their job or not when they go to the polls next year.
Governor, you said no critical race theory in K through 12, but what about higher education?
So in higher education, again, one of the things I loved about my my education is the ability to learn different theories. I worry when we exclude any type of idea or theory out there. That's where what's remarkable about our institutions of higher ed is the ability to debate these things and to become critical thinkers and to decide what you believe and how you represent that to the world. So this is America. This is what we do best. We let those ideas compete, and those types of ideas are really perfect in a setting like that.
Okay, we'd like to go to some remote reporters. Emily Means with KUER, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, hi, Governor Cox. Good to see you today. Last year, state and community leaders signed on to the Utah Compact on Racial Equity, and part of that includes acknowledging that racism isn't just an individual character flaw, but also a systemic issue. So how do you think the resolution from the legislature squares with Utah's commitment to the compact?
Well, I don't think there's anything in that resolution that disagrees with the compact in any way, and that's what's important. And I think so much gets lost in these debates, and there's just no room for nuance anymore at all. And I hate to see that. Again, it is important to understand our history, and it's very important to examine where we are. There's no question that racism didn't just disappear in the 60s because of the civil rights movement. I've encouraged many times people to sit down and talk to people, learn from people that have a different life experience than we have, and to try to understand what is happening there. This is one of the reasons that our administration has been so committed to help with equity in education. Look, every child should have the same opportunity as every other child, and we are committed to that. And by the way, that includes not just our communities of color, but our kids in rural Utah as well, where they don't have the same opportunities because we don't have the same funding mechanisms in some of our schools, our lower income communities. And so trying to find those areas where there isn't the same opportunity. Again, we can't guarantee outcomes. That's never been part of the American experience. We can guarantee opportunity and give people the individual freedoms to take those opportunities, and that's what we're really trying to do here in the state of Utah. And so we have to look and we have to examine always what we're doing. I'll tell you, and we'll have more information on this coming out. But I commissioned a study in our government, our state government. The first leg of the study was to examine wage gaps that might exist between genders and between races if they exist in our in state government. And so the governor's office of planning and budget has been working diligently on that study, and so that we'll get those answers very soon. And that's what we're doing. We're looking and saying, okay, do we have a problem? Is there something that we've missed along the way? And if so, how can we fix it? And if not, that's good news, and we should celebrate that. And so I think it's healthy to be constantly examining how far we've come and where we are, and making sure that we're not exacerbating the problem.
Okay, Bethany with the Salt Lake Tribune, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Governor. So I had a question about the timing of the critical race theory resolution. We've seen a groundswell of public opposition to it, but if there's no evidence that these theories are being taught in schools or part of the curriculum, do you think that urgency and panic is misplaced or overhyped?
Well, whether it's misplaced or overhyped, I don't know that it matters because it exists. And so, but, part of representing the people and constituencies are when there are issues that gain prominence, whether correct or incorrect, trying to get good information and deal with it. And so that's why I think, again, what I proposed and what the resolutions propose as well are exactly that. It's encouraging the state school board to investigate, to bring people together, to have conversations around it, and to clarify what is happening, what is being taught, and making it easier for our teachers and our local school boards who are also getting these same questions and giving them a platform to be able to respond, so that we can say definitively what is being taught and what is not being taught, and getting it out there. What I will say, and I've said this over and over again, I've been saying it for many, many years, is that we would all be better off if people would stop watching cable news, whether it's CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, pick whatever one you're addicted to. And I'm 8 years sober, and it's been one of the best things that I've ever done. And I would just encourage more and more people to turn that off and talk to real people about the issues around you, not listening to the talking heads who make their money by making you outraged. It's unhealthy. It's unhealthy personally, and it's certainly unhealthy for our democratic republic.
Governor, why do you appear on CNN then?
Because there are people on there, and I appear on Fox News as well. I've appeared on both of them. I'm trying to be a voice of reason in a sea of anger and contempt. And so if we're not willing to go to those places and try to convince people that there's a better way, then we're lost. But I appear on it on occasion, but I never watch it.
Governor, on the issue of what the legislature did pass, a bill on school mask mandate bans in the fall, will you sign that bill?
I will. Yes.
Why?
Well, I'll sign it because I've said all along, I've been saying for a couple months now that we won't have masks in the fall. We do, what we know is that, again, the virus is continuing to decline. We have younger people now that have the opportunity to get the vaccine. And so now you're really talking under the age of 12, right? We're really talking elementary schools. And when you look at the data around elementary schools, the data is very clear. Again, the risk of hospitalization and death for elementary schools is extremely, extremely low. This is one area where it actually looks like the flu or less than the flu. And also the ability to spread the virus from younger age groups is very low. Most people don't know this, but even the CDC recommendations from the very beginning have said that for younger children and those elementary age kids, although they did recommend masks, they also recommend caution, giving kids an opportunity and knowing how young kids develop. The developmental piece of this, I've talked to my wife often about this, who has a degree in special education with an emphasis in early childhood and severe, that kids seeing faces and especially in language development, how important those things are. And the CDC mentions that language development barrier all along. And so I'm supportive of removing the mask mandate. If there is a change in circumstances, and that's important to know, we have the ability to alter that. I have the ability to alter that for 30 days if there's a change in circumstances, at which point then the legislature would need to become involved, which we would do anyway. So it doesn't mean that it couldn't change. It just means that there would have to be a change in circumstances for that to happen.
Okay, Lisa Riley-Roche with Deseret News, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Lisa.
Hi, Governor. Thank you. And I'm glad we switched back to the pandemic, because I wanted to ask you, with the changes we've seen from the CDC recommendations on the fully vaccinated and wearing masks and taking other precautions against the virus, that's led to a lot of confusion around the country and among some Utahns about where they should wear a mask. Can they trust their fellow citizens who aren't fully vaccinated to continue to take precautions? Are you at all worried that we may be moving too quickly towards a new normal? And what's your advice for Utahns going forward to protect not just themselves and their families, but each other, all of us?
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. So I'm not worried that we're moving too quickly, actually this is the first time there hasn't been confusion with the CDC. People may disagree with it, but the CDC was actually very clear. This is the simplest guidance we've ever gotten from the CDC, and that is if you're fully vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask, and if you're not, you do. That's it. It couldn't be simpler. It couldn't be more clear, and I believe it couldn't be more correct, and that's what's important. And if you also listen to the director of the CDC when they made that announcement, you ask about whether we can trust our fellow Utahns. If you're fully vaccinated, it doesn't matter if somebody next to you who isn't fully vaccinated and isn't wearing a mask. They're the ones that are at risk, not you. And so we do have an opportunity now to take that personal responsibility, and I hope that this will serve as an incentive for people to get the vaccine. What I will say is that we immediately saw an uptick in many of our mass vaccination sites the day or 2 days after that announcement was made by the CDC. And as we talked to people there and said, well, why didn't you do it before, and why are you doing it now? They said, well, because I heard that I don't have to wear a mask anymore if I get fully vaccinated. Now, obviously, there were people who were not wearing masks before. There will be people who aren't fully vaccinated who aren't wearing masks. That's a mistake, but it's certainly people get the opportunity to choose that, and so we will just continue to encourage people to get the vaccine. We will make it as available as possible, but we're now in that stage of the pandemic where you need to take care of yourself, and the way you do that is by getting the vaccine or wearing a mask, and we have better masks available. You can double mask if you're worried about that, but we do need to continue to get back to normal. Had an opportunity to be at Hale Center Theater the other night. It was a packed house, and it was so great. I can't tell you how great it was to have everybody back together. Everybody again fully vaccinated, not wearing a mask, watching the theater and connecting. And that's what we've been missing over the past year. We're wired for connection, and now we get to connect again, and that's healthy for our souls, and it's healthy for our country.
All right, thank you so much, Governor. That's all the time we have for our television broadcasts. Join us back here next month for the Governor's Monthly News Conference. Okay, and I believe Lisa has a follow-up question for you as we continue on social media.
Yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
Thanks, Governor. I just wanted to be clear. You say the CDC recommendations are simple and there's not confusion, but there is a lot of confusion nationally. A panel of epidemiologists, several hundred in fact, are still suggesting that masks are a good idea going forward. Others are really not clear on how when the people around you are doing what they should do. Do you feel that it's clear here in Utah, though, that people aren't confused about it?
There may be, again, there's no confusion with what the CDC said. Now, those epidemiologists may have different opinions and disagree with the CDC, but that's not the same as confusion on the part of what the CDC has said. So, it's amazing to me that the people who said trust the science are now not trusting the science, and that's fine. Again, it shows that the one ugly side of partisanship has been pointed out ad nauseum, but now we're seeing the other side of the partisanship in the pandemic, where people disagree with the science behind this. Again, the science is very clear. We're seeing incredibly low amounts of breakthrough cases, and whenever there are breakthrough cases, they're almost always asymptomatic or no symptoms, or very mild symptoms without hospitalization or death. And so again, whether you trust the person next to you or not, I don't care, and it doesn't matter if you've been fully vaccinated. So if you haven't been fully vaccinated, then I would be really nervous, and I would exercise caution. So again, I think it's been clear at the CDC level. I think it's been clear. I will also note that same report, that same survey of epidemiologists show that they are extreme low risk takers. That they don't fit the kind kind of the normal mode of the average American, and they admit to that. And so they will always see the world a little differently. If Dr. Dunn were here, we always joke about this. She says that as an epidemiologist, you get a different view of the world. She would tell you cruises and hot tubs and Disneyland are three places that you should avoid. And so epidemiologists absolutely have a different view of the world. And so I think I think that's different than letting the science tell us what is very low risk. And everybody has that choice. Again, if you are worried about you or you are worried about your family, then you absolutely should wear a mask, and no one should judge you for doing that. I have a sister with cystic fibrosis. She wears a mask every winter because the flu could kill her. And so people are going to have to make those decisions as we move forward. But for most of us now, we can trust the science, and we should be able to trust the CDC and their recommendations.
Governor, I wanted to ask about the drought emergency. The legislature has extended the state of emergency for drought. Are you making plans for, how bad is it going to get? At this point, you're starting to get data, you're starting to get projections. We know we're headed into wildfire season as well.
Yeah.
So what plans are the state doing?
So we're working with the local water districts, and that's where all of those decisions are made. And let me just state unequivocally, guys, it's really bad. It's as bad as it's been. We need everyone in the state to understand right now that we're heading into one of the worst drought and potentially worst fire seasons that we've seen, and we've seen some bad ones. And so it's going to take personal responsibility. But those more than that, there have already been cutbacks. On my farm, we're limited now like we normally are in July or August. So we started out with those limitations. We're already have limitations on watering in our yards, and we need everybody to be especially cautious. If you're going camping with a trailer, check your chains. Make sure you're not dragging chains. If you're going out to shoot, make sure you're in an area that is where shooting is allowed, that there isn't any potential for sparking that would cause fires, and certainly open burning and campfires, those types of things. Check the restrictions before you go. And of course, we're not even to fireworks season yet. So we'll be watching all of those things. Now, how bad it gets, Ben, really depends on the weather. That's out of our control. We've had some rainstorms in different places. We're hopeful that those will keep going. All of that being said, I met with the Speaker and the President and sat down with our team this week, and we are going to be working and putting resources behind a significant conservation push. That's not just for this year. This is a long-term conservation push. We know that as the fastest growing state in the nation, that we're going to have to develop new water resources, and we will be proposing and looking at new water resources, but also significant changes in the way we develop and the way we're careful with water and the use of water. So I could envision a time soon where new developments, we would be eliminating park strips and looking at xeriscaping much more. There's so much more that we can do here in the state of Utah.
We have a lot of neighbors we see that are watering every day of the week. We've got suggested restrictions. Do you see mandatory restrictions coming?
Yeah, I do. Those mandatory restrictions will happen by water district, and they monitor the resources that are available and what it looks like. So it's going to be different in every part of the state. There are already parts of the state that have mandatory restrictions. But again, I would encourage everyone to, most people overwater. And if you go to, there are several, I don't have them off the top of my head, but we just Google, Utah water, and what you'll see is Utah State has some great pieces on their website. We have them for different water districts at the state level, and you can tell how often you should be watering your lawn. For much of the state, it's still just once a week. In some parts of the state, it's 3 times a week, but most of us, excess water way too much, and that's actually not healthy for your lawn.
Any plans for fireworks restrictions?
We'll look at those as they get closer. We would work closely with the legislature before we implement any of those. But again, it really depends on what the rain situation looks like leading up to fireworks season.
Okay, and we are out of time. Governor, I appreciate you being here answering all of our questions.
You're very welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.